kid and I was kind of developing my politics, there was actually a radio host, a guy who founded this organization called Focus on the Family, James Dobson, who was really influential to me. And he was just, he was a good Christian guy. He talked about the family. He talked about things I cared a lot about. And I came from a broken home. So when he talked about the ways in which a broken home had a negative effect on kids, it made sense to me because I was seeing it in my own life, and then here was a guy who was actually talking about it. And what I liked about him is that he didn't talk about it in this judgmental way, right? He wasn't attacking a kid like me who didn't have everything handed to him. He was just explaining in a very real world, with a fundamentally Christian underpinning, here's what happens when things are broken. And you know, when you ask who are some of the conservative influencers or the political influencers today, there are a few people that I look to who I think have very, very smart and wise spiritual wisdom. I mean, like I think Andrew and Blake and the podcast that they have at TPUSA is amazing. I listen to it all the time. I think it's great. You know, I think if you want a good laugh, I love Theo Vaughn. Like, he's one of my favorite. I think he's just incredible, and he's got one of these senses of humor where like 30% of the time it goes completely over my head, and 70% of the time he's the funniest person imaginable. But I think Theo has a good heart, and that's one of the reasons why I really like listening to his show. And then just in terms of like, you know, pure politics, of course you should be listening to the Vice President of these United States. Thank you.
And then my fun question is, if you could have a free day with 0 responsibilities, what would your day look like?
Oh, that's a good question. And honestly, I would add not just 0 responsibilities, but total anonymity. Because the thing that I love this job, it's very cool, I'm very honored to have it, but what I really want to do, honestly, is take Usha and the 3 kids and just walk to a local cafe, eat a ton of pancakes, and then take the kids to the zoo without anybody knowing who the hell I am. That's what I would do if I had a day.
Awesome.
Thank you.
The next question. All right, hi JD, my name is Jacob, and I'm also from Cincinnati, so I'm with you there on the zoo. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
so.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyway, my question is that there's a lot of division within our country right now, from right to left and everybody in between. And leading up to the 2024 election and Charlie's death, I found that Charlie was definitely the glue that held at least the conservative movement together.
Right.
And since he has passed, there's been a lot of division within our conservative movement, and especially with the 2026 midterms and the 2028 election coming up. How do you think the conservative movement can be united, and if there is a who do you think that could be?
Well, that's a very good question, and look, man, I agree with you. I think part of the division is Charlie's death, because Charlie, as Andrew knows well, and a lot of this was behind the scenes, Charlie was the guy who was talking to different segments of the movement, right? So, I mean, just this Iran thing. Charlie would be the guy who was talking to the people who really wanted to go to war with Iran and the people who really didn't want to go to war with Iran, and he would try to find ways for those guys to work together, even if they disagreed over one issue, right? And so Charlie's absence is a huge thing, and my answer to your question is, who replaces Charlie Kirk? I think it's going to be a combination of people. I think Andrew's got a role, I've got a role, you guys have got a role, and I think the most important thing to remember about how Charlie thought about this is he always recognized what was the goal and who was the real problem. The real problem is not a person who disagrees with you about this or that foreign policy or domestic policy issue. The real problem is the person who killed our friend and anybody who defended the people who killed our friend. And we got to keep our eye on the ball and recognize that those who want to kill conservatives because they have the wrong viewpoints, we need to defeat those people. We need to unite with each other and actually fight together to defeat the real enemy that's out there. That's the most important message. And I'll also give you, one of the reasons why I'm optimistic about this is, even when Charlie was alive, you saw some of these divisions starting to bubble to the surface, okay? And I remember, Charlie died in September of 2025. I hadn't been vice president, I'd been vice president for all of 8 months when Charlie lost his life to an assassin's gun. One thing that makes people in politics sort of divide against each other is just being in power, right? When you have control of the House, the Senate, the White House, and there's not an election around the horizon, it's very easy to forget what your goal is. Well, starting in a few months, we're going to have primaries that are over, we're going to have candidates on the ballot, and we're all going to need to get out there and work hard, because the people who want to kill Donald Trump, the people who want to throw Donald Trump in prison, the people who murdered our friend, and then the people who celebrated it afterwards, those people are trying to achieve political power. We cannot let them, and we have to unite to make sure that doesn't happen.
Amen. Thank you, JD.
Good evening, Mr. Vice President. Thank you for taking the time to come out here. My name is Dane Hoff. I'm originally from the great state of Arizona and proudly voted for you and Donald J. Trump in November 2024.
There we go.
And my question is that many people believe the midterms are already gone for us. I disagree. So what is the game plan to win the midterms, and what's the strategy to maintain the coalitions Trump won in 24?
So number one is, I totally agree with you. The idea that midterms are gone is preposterous. And if you go back to 2018 and you look at the polling picture in 2018, that was Trump's first term. And what it showed is that Republicans were getting crushed in the generic ballot by 10, 11, 12 points. The worst polls right now, the worst polls, not all of them, the worst polls have us down by 5 or 6 points, okay? And what happened in 2018 is that as we got closer to the election, and again, the right kind of unified in the face of an election campaign, what happened is those margins narrowed, and the Republican Party did much better than expected in 2018. It wasn't a great election by any means, but the idea that this is done now, it's ridiculous, and frankly, it's cynical, pessimistic garbage pushed by people who want us to completely give up. Don't give up. We got to keep on fighting. That's the fundamental and most important thing, is the people telling you to give up on the midterms are the people who want us to lose the midterms. Don't listen to them. But what's the game plan? You asked what the game plan is. So I'll give you a little good news and a little bad news on that, because the bad news and the good news about the modern Congress is, whether you agree with this or not, the districts are so gerrymandered, there aren't that many battleground congressional districts left. Like, if you go back to 2014, where I think Republicans won like 80 seats in the House, that's not going to happen. Elections like that don't happen anymore. So what we got to fight is 20 or 30 districts where there's actually some real competition in those districts. We got to put a lot of resources. We got to knock on a lot of doors. We got to get out the marginal Trump voter. Because one of the things we saw in 2024 is a lot of our voters, they're dedicated, they love the president, they don't show up in midterm elections. So we got to knock on as many doors and make sure those people get out and vote. We have a game plan, but the House is going to be determined by 20 or 30 seats. We just got to win as many of those as possible. And yes, we can win the midterms in 2026.
Thank you.
And we should say what's happening in Virginia, you know?
Exactly. I mean, and then this is the thing. Democrats always overreact. They always overreach. They always do crazy things. And look, there are districts where, you know, MSNBC will say, well, this district, you know, Donald Trump won it by 20 points, and then, you know, this guy only won it by 12 points. That means everything's terrible. You look in Virginia, or look at some of these other places where, you know, Kamala Harris won it by 4 points, and now Republicans are winning by a few points. There's a lot of reason to think that we have a good chance here. We just got to keep on working at it. Sorry, next question.
And the redistricting, make sure if you're watching in Virginia.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. Virginia, vote against the Obama-Spangenberger redistricting plan.
Yep.
Vote against it. And frankly, the polls are moving in our direction a little bit. We just got to get out there and defeat that ballot measure.
Hi, Mr. Vice President. Thank you so much for being here. It's truly incredible that you can come all across the world and then just be in Athens. So my question, not to sound pessimistic, but my question revolves around Congress.
Sure.
And, you know, many Americans feel discouraged, even somewhat dissatisfied. You know, the executive sets out a plan. We want to do something, but Congress sometimes is just unable to deliver. And with, you know, the inability to keep the government open during shutdowns and all of that stuff, what are your thoughts? I know leaders such as Governor DeSantis have called on term limits for Congress members, balanced budget amendments, and banning stock trading. What do you think are just some practical measures that we can take to ensure Congress is delivering results to the American people?
Yeah, so great question. And I remember during the State of the Union address, when the president talked about banning members of Congress from trading stocks, I looked over at Nancy Pelosi, and she was sitting in her chair like... And if you watch the State of the Union, I start laughing hysterically. It's because I looked over and saw the look on Nancy Pelosi's face. I think people don't have any idea how bad the corruption is in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, I love the idea of term limits for Congress. You know what I love more? I love the idea of term limits for bureaucrats. Nobody in Washington, D.C. should be able to sit in a chair for 30 years, do your public service, and go back home and do something productive. Look, so much of what's broken about Congress really does go down to corruption. So, you know, there's so many examples, let's say, of a congressman who got a classified briefing on COVID. It's like, oh, there's this crazy Wuhan flu that's floating around Wuhan, China. And you know, again, at that point, like, everybody called it the Wuhan flu. And then you come out of that classified briefing and you buy a bunch of biotech stocks, or you buy a bunch of pharmaceutical stocks. Or maybe, you know, you sell airline stocks because you know that the airlines aren't going to work that well if everybody's sort of sheltering in place and governments are shutting down the economy. That stuff should be illegal, and you should go to prison for it. And if you just cut out the basic corruption, you'd solve a lot of the problems.
Thank you so much.
This will be the last question.
Okay. Can we take two more? Because I like answering questions. We'll take a couple more.
Hi, Mr. Vice President. Before I get to my question, I just want to, number one, thank you for your service to the United States military, and number two, welcome you to the greatest university in this country.
Thank you.
My question is, as somebody whose parents adopted 3 children from the foster care system and coming from a broken household yourself, we have seen different sides of a somewhat similar narrative. How would you respond to somebody who says that the only way to succeed in this country is to come from a generationally wealthy family?
That's a good question. Wow, I didn't expect that one. Well, first of all, it's just not true. And I think that one of the things that, a very powerful thing that somebody told me, is that, you know, disadvantage and unfairness is just, it is true. You know, not everybody started at the exact same place. Some people were dealt a much worse hand than others. But what somebody, again, this person gave me a very good piece of advice and said, no matter what hand you were dealt, you have the responsibility to play it as well as you can. And I think that, for me at least, there was something empowering for me about recognizing that, yeah, my life wasn't as easy as most other kids. Like, I wasn't born with money. I wasn't born with parents who had connections. But I still had a responsibility to God. I had a responsibility to myself to play that hand as well as I possibly could. And that was very empowering to me. So I think first the message is, look at the stories. Look at Clarence Thomas. Look at all the people in the United States who have come from very humble beginnings and achieved great things. You can believe, as I do, that we have to do a lot better job by the young people of this country, while at the same time knowing that you are the master of your own destiny. Never give up on yourself, and never believe that you're a victim of circumstances, because when you believe that, you will be a victim of circumstances.
Thank you so much, and go Dogs.
She's trolling you with that.
I know.
Hi, Mr. Vice President.
Hello.
My name is Esther. This is so cool. So I know, like, the whole H-1B thing you talked about, but I am also a daughter of a legal immigrant who came here on an H-1B visa.
Sure.
So my mom and my dad, we've been here for over 10 years. I was born here, well, more than over 10 years. I'm 20 years old. Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
That's okay. Take your time.
But, like, for people who have been here on H-1B visas, it's been really hard, like, getting the green card based on everything with quotas and everything. Like, my family, we're from India. The quotas are so bad, and they're still open, and they're taking the money. How do we fix the immigration system for people who have been waiting for the green cards for so long? And they're not getting it in time, because a lot of people don't know it, during the Biden administration, to get a green card, it would have taken my family 150 years to get a green card.
Sure.
So how is the Trump administration like trying to fix that for people who have been here, are paying taxes and doing a lot of stuff that citizens do, but they can't do a lot of things that citizens do? Like, we're also looking for the American dream. Like, my parents, they send me to private Catholic school, even though sometimes we used to live paycheck to paycheck. So how is the Trump administration going to fix that for like people like that?
Sure. So let me just offer a couple observations there. So one, I appreciate the question, and two, what I would say is, you heard me talk about H-1B fraud, because I think there is a lot of fraud in the H-1B system. And I think you can believe on the one hand that there's a lot of fraud in the H-1B system, while also believing that there are people who have come to the United States in the past who have enriched this country. And look, I'm married to the daughter of immigrants from India, and I love my in-laws, and they're great people, and they've been great contributors to the United States of America. But I also think that when you become an American citizen, whether your family has 9 generations of lineage in the United States or whether your family has 0 generations of lineage in the United States, one of the responsibilities that we must expect of citizens, and of course, it's always hard to talk in specifics about your situation because I don't know about it, but one of the obligations of citizens is that you have to think about the best interest of the country, and not the country you came from beforehand, and not of any sort of any group that you came from. You've got to think of yourself as an American. The system only works if everybody thinks of themselves as an American. I remember having this conversation with my father-in-law, who's an amazing guy, and it was actually during a Senate event that I had done, where I had somebody who came up to me, and I'm sure a great person, like a wonderful person. It was a Ukrainian American in Cleveland, Ohio. I was campaigning for the Senate. There are a lot of Ukrainian Americans in Cleveland, Ohio. And this person got really agitated at me because I was saying we should stop funding the Ukraine war, okay? And I still believe that, obviously, and it's one of the things I'm proudest that we've done as administration, is we've told Europe that if you want to buy weapons, you can, but the United States is not buying weapons and sending them to Ukraine anymore. We're just out of that business. It's a very good thing. But these Ukrainian American, again, a kind person, they probably didn't vote for me after this conversation, but he was kind of sticking his finger in my face saying, you need to support my country. You need to support my country. And I said, sir, with all due respect, if you're an American, your country is the United States of America, not a place that you immigrated from, whenever that was. And it occurred to me, and I know this is the last question, I'll try to be quick here, but it occurred to me that my father-in-law, who came from India, who moved to the United States, who got an education and became an American citizen, that never once in my life has he ever said, you have to do this, or you should do this because it's in the best interest of the country that I came from. And I think that attitude, to the extent that attitude dominates among the new generation of Americans, that makes Americans feel welcoming towards people, because everybody, again, whether your family's been here for 300 years or 1 second, to be an American means to look out for Americans first, and that's the perspective we have to take to our immigration policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll do one more. Sorry, real quick. I love this, but I got to go.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice President, and coming to UGA and allowing us to express our freedom of speech. So thank you so much. The First Lady said Epstein was not acting alone and had to be held accountable. She said and called for a congressional hearing, but President Trump multiple times called the files a hoax. The acting attorney general said Epstein shouldn't be a part of anything at the DOJ. If there are compromised government officials in those files, how can the public trust that this administration will hold anyone accountable when its own Justice Department is actively blocking the investigation? Given that, can you clearly articulate your stance on whether federal entities should have a formal investigation? Thank you.
Yeah. So first of all, you said the Associate Attorney General or something. I haven't seen that quote, but here's my view on the Epstein matter. Number one, the guy was clearly a scumbag, okay? Number two, he clearly had extraordinary connections both with intelligence services, both inside the United States and outside the United States, and also with a lot of very wealthy and powerful people, okay? Number three, I have been a firm advocate and will continue to be a firm advocate of where we have something, and you know, like, I'm probably more obsessed with this than most officials, okay? Probably more obsessed with this than most people even in this room, is when you see somebody who says something in an email that suggests, you know, there's one email I read, and it's been a little while ago, but it was talking about, you know, one person sent an email to Jeffrey Epstein saying, oh, there were some really nice, like, pizzas and grape sodas or something like that. And I remember it sounded like the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, but here it was in like an email from a guy. And my reaction to that was, we should absolutely investigate that person, okay? And, you know, you remind me, I'm going to follow up on that to see whether we've investigated that person, because we should. We absolutely should. When you see evidence of sexual assault, sexual misconduct, regardless of whether you're powerful or not. In fact, you should probably investigate it more if you're a powerful person, right? I don't want powerful people, you know, being involved in this disgusting behavior. But I have to defend the president on this, because when he said that it was a hoax, what he was talking about was this democratic idea that he's connected to Epstein. If you look at those emails, it's like, you know, they were in the same, you know, everybody in Palm Beach knew everybody, okay? Like, the president has said he knew Jeffrey Epstein and he was a scumbag. But what you see in those emails is that Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump. And Donald Trump hated Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, one of the emails is about Donald Trump narking on Jeffrey Epstein to the local sheriff, saying, this guy's a scumbag. You should go and pick him up. So when Donald Trump says, when the president says this is a hoax, he's not saying it's a hoax that Epstein was the scumbag. He's not saying that it's a hoax that Epstein was connected to powerful people. He's saying this democratic idea that somehow he was Epstein's best friend, that is a hoax. And if you look at the emails, it's obvious that Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald J. Trump. And by the way, one of the best signs for whether you're a good person or not, for whether you're a decent human being, is if the worst people in the world hate your guts. The fact that Jeffrey Epstein hates Donald J. Trump is a pretty good thing for Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, well, and I will say, by the way, just so you know, the DOJ, just before we got on stage, I guess I saw the news, has unredacted fully the 6 million documents, made it available to your congressmen and women. So put pressure on them to go give you a report of what they find. Mr. Vice President, thank you so much.
Man. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
अमरीकी नायब सदर जेडी वेंस यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ जॉर्जिया में तकरीब से खिताब के बाद सवालों के जवाब दे रहे थे। इस मौके पर उन्होंने गुफ्तगू करते हुए ये कहा कि ईरान से मुज़ाकरात किए जा रहे हैं, ईरान से जंगबंदी कायम है, ईरानी मुज़ाकरात का डील चाहते थे, ईरान से मुज़ाकरात में जिस मकाम पर हैं उस पर बेहतर महसूस करता हूँ। जेडी वेंस ने यह भी कहा कि अमेरिका और ईरान के दरमियान बहुत अदम एतमाद है, एक रात में ये दूर नहीं हो सकता। नायब अमरीकी सदर ने यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ जॉर्जिया में तकरीब से खिताब किया, कहा कि ईरान से जामे मुज़ाकरात और मुआहदा चाहते हैं। नायब सदर ने कहा कि ईरान नॉर्मल बने तो अमेरिका इक़्तिसादी तौर पर नॉर्मल मुल्क जैसा बर्ताव करेगा। 39 बरस में इस आला सतह के अमेरिका ईरान मुज़ाकरात नहीं हुए। डील ऐसी हो ईरान न्यूक्लियर हथियार हासिल ना कर सके, रियासती दहशत गर्दी ना करे, डील ऐसी हो कि ईरानी अवाम आलमी मईशत का हिस्सा बन सकें। ट्रंप चाहते हैं कि ईरान से छोटी नहीं जामे डील हो। ट्रंप चाहते हैं कि ईरान डील अमेरिका और दुनिया में हर एक के लिए अजीम हो। जेडी वेंस ने कहा कि 39 बरस का आदम एतमाद एक रात में दूर नहीं हो सकता। ईरानी जानते थे कि सदर ट्रंप ने मुझे नेक नियति से भेजा है। ट्रंप छोटी डील नहीं चाहते, इसीलिए अभी तक ईरान से डील नहीं हुई। मैंने पाकिस्तान में भी कहा कि बहुत पेशरफ्त हुई है मगर जामे डील नहीं हो सकी।
Set a policy. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and right now we are negotiating to make sure that very thing happens. And here's, you know, what's interesting about this is what's interesting about this is that we have this ceasefire that's in place. I think it's 6 or 7 days old. Right now, this ceasefire is holding. And what you're seeing is what the president wants to make, he doesn't want to make like a small deal. He wants to make the grand bargain. And And what he's basically offering to Iran is very simple, and frankly, it's something that no president has, has had the ability to offer. He said that if you're willing to act like a normal country, we are willing to treat you economically like a normal country. He doesn't want a small deal. And that's one of the reasons why, one, I'd say in Pakistan, we made a ton of progress, but the reason why the deal is not yet done is because the president, he really wants a deal where Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, Iran is not state sponsoring terrorism, but also the people of Iran can thrive and prosper and join the world economy. And that's the trade that he's offering. He's saying, if you guys... He said, if you guys commit to not having a nuclear weapon, we are going to make Iran thrive, we're going to make it economically prosperous, and we're going to invite the Iranian people into the world economy in a way they haven't been in my entire life. And that's the kind of Trumpian grand bargain that the president has put on the table. Man, we're going to keep on negotiating and try to make it happen because it would be great for the world, it'd be great for our country, it'd be great for everybody. So I'm going to keep on fighting to make it happen.
Yeah, I know. Just a few more, and then we've got a few
please. I know we have some questions from the audience, too.
My one question is, when you looked across from these Iranian negotiators, what did you make of them? Did you get the sense that they really were the right people? I mean, I'm assuming you guys know this type of thing, but...
Yeah, I mean, look, you never know. We had never... The United States had never had meetings at that level with the Iranian government in 49 years. Wow. Like, it's a meeting that had never before happened. Not Democrat, not Republican. We had never had a meeting like that where you have, you know, the person who's effectively running the country in Iran sitting across from the Vice President of the United States. That had never happened. And what look, honestly, after 49 years, there's a lot of course, mistrust between Iran and the United States of America. You're not going to solve that problem overnight. But yeah, I think the people we were sitting across from wanted to make a deal. And I know the President of the United States told us to go out there and negotiate in good faith. That's what we did. That's what we're going to keep on doing. So you never know, though. Yeah. Right? I mean, I've sat across from United States senators that I thought I agreed with, and, you know, you don't know with those people, right? I won't say who. You can guess. But I feel very good about where we are.
Right.
और अब ये खबर है कि वज़ीर ख़ज़ाना मोहम्मद औरंगज़ेब अब से कुछ देर में वाशिंगटन में पाकिस्तानी सफारतखाने में मीडिया से बात करेंगे। वज़ीर ख़ज़ाना मोहम्मद औरंगज़ेब ने पिछले चंद रोज़ में अमरीका में मुख्तलिफ अहम शख्सियात से मुलाकातें की हैं। इम्कान है कि वज़ीर ख़ज़ाना इन तमाम उमूर और पाकिस्तान की माशी सूरत हाल पर बात करेंगे। जियो न्यूज़ ये प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस बराह रास्त दिखाएगा। कुछ देर के बाद वाशिंगटन में पाकिस्तानी सफारतखाने में वज़ीर ख़ज़ाना मोहम्मद औरंगज़ेब मीडिया से बात करेंगे और जियो न्यूज़ ये प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस बराह रास्त दिखाएगा।
मुझे पता था वो नहीं आएगा, झूठा मक्कार।
अब्बा को हार्ट अटैक हो गया है। निहाल की कोई खबर है? उसका फोन बंद है। शादी सिर्फ एक कुर्बानी है।
निहाल is back।
खुश नसीबी रोजाना रात 7 बजे सिर्फ जियो पर।
कान देखते हैं, पहुंचने नहीं देती, जहनों को पनपने नहीं देती, सवाल की चोट से गिरती है हर दीवार।
आज शाहजेब खानजादा के साथ
देखिए एक दिन जियो